Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the channel. Today's going to be a little bit of a unique episode because I'm going to share with you some family history. So, automotive culture runs very deep in my ancestry. So, the pictures that you see behind me here are on my kitchen wall. These are photos of my grandfather and my grandmother in 1954 on their honeymoon trip in a 1950 Buick Special. My grandfather passed away when I was 8 years old, but he was always a devout car guy. This picture was taken in northern Utah after, you can see the hose here on the lawn. He had just washed up his pride and joy, which was that 1950 Buick Special. Now that particular car we've tried to track down. I lost any sense of hope in finding out where it is today because I'm sure it no longer exists. However, the closest I did get to owning a 1950 Buick is a die-cast model car here that I tracked down a number of years ago. So along with that, there's some other really fun pieces of family history I want to share with you, particularly because today is an anniversary of sorts. I'll get into that in just a second, but in the meantime, I want to show you some cool artifacts that I found having to do with the 1950 Buick in this picture. Here's my collection of Buick memorabilia. This was all mostly eBay stuff from back in the day, but kind of fun to see the promotional literature from 73 years ago. I did identify the specific model of car that Grandpa had. You can tell because of the way the roof line was laid out. Whoops, I got to open this the other way. But there were a few different versions of the 1950 Buick, and his was the Special. And unlike this one right here, which has what they call the tour-back roof line, you can see a very formal roof line. His had instead a more swooping back end, similar to what they had on the coupe here. And so they called that the jetback sedan, and it was a model 43D as compared to the 43 base in the background, which didn't have as much sort of bright work and chrome treatment. So that was his car. And found some other stuff, including this postcard promoting some service facility, the colors. I did talk to Grandma, and she believes his car was this blue, would have been Olympic blue. And of course the picture's black and white. I never saw the car, so I can't verify that. This was a Fax for 50 little spiral bound notebook that has a bunch of really detailed little sections. I believe this was destined to be for salespeople to learn about the vehicle. Talks about obviously the characteristic Buick Ventaports for hood ventilation and other things like that. Buick Motor Division, neat little book. This brochure talks about the suspension system. This is my favorite one right here. So that car had really toothy grill. It was a 1 year only grill, and one of the things that they used to promote it was the fact that the grill, if I can open this with one hand, the grill in itself had its own brochure. The reason why is because each of those individual teeth were individually replaceable. So it says, fashion, safety, and savings. These Buick bars are individually replaceable and ease of accident, far less costly than buying a whole new grill. So pretty crazy how they promoted that. Talks about the benefits of that grill, the fact that it's non-locking, so you're not going to lock horns with the car in front of you. And then again, each grill bar was individually replaceable. So such a cool car in the sense that it was really a 1 year only Buick offering. And I can see why my grandpa took such pride in that car back in the day. That brings us to the next piece of this story. So my automotive history goes back even deeper than that. On the other side of the family, on my grandmother's side, her dad opened a service station in 1923. And if you ever come to my house, you'll see these three pictures in sequence on the wall in the hallway leading to my garage. So the story goes that my great-grandfather, Merrill Hansen, by the way, this is his wife, Della, he passed away in 1985 when I was only 3 years old. So I don't have a great memory of him, although I do remember meeting him and the significance of today's date. And by the way, today is June 20th of 2023. On June 20th of 1923, 100 years ago today, he opened a service station. There was this listing that went live in the Journal newspaper complete line of gas, oils, and auto accessories at Logan prices for better service college service station. There's his name, Merrill Hansen. So I'm going to walk you through a little show and tell of what that station looked like over the years. These are a series of photos that we found at my grandmother's house. This would have been in the very early days of 1920s. Probably some Ford Model A's here. You can see he was a Texaco dealer at the time. I remember my grandmother telling me that in that era, the fuel or gasoline was actually brought by horse, which is kind of counterintuitive, right? You have horses bringing fuel for automobiles. This is a little bit of a progression here. You can see this would have been wintertime in northern Utah, a small town called College Ward, which is why it was called College Service. But I believe this to be him in the driver's seat of that nice looking rig. And this was Parco fuel at the time. There was a ladies' restroom with, I think, outside entrance, and then the men's restroom was inside. This picture is kind of cool. This is my grandmother. She's now 93. This was her at age 1 in January 1931 with her dad. And this picture is taken from that same angle, but further down the road. So later, after initially living in the service station back room for maybe the first little while, they built this house next door just to the south along Highway 89 there in College Ward. So another wintertime picture there. I don't exactly know who these people are in this picture. One of them is probably my grandmother, but same side of the building, south side of that station. So later, there were some architectural changes. There used to be the overhang here, and you could see that that was chopped off at some point. This service bay, and if you get really close, you can see that says safety check. They added on this piece here to the original building and then continued to operate it. So opening day was obviously in June of 1923, and Merrill worked in that station, ran it until 1967 when he retired. These are some cool envelopes that we found. His address was nothing more than RFD number 1. You can see at that time when he was a Chevron dealer. This is one of my favorite pieces that we found. It's a ticket good for, it says, this ticket and 15 cents admit one adult to the Grand Theater on Wednesday and Thursday all day and until March 15th, 1932. So, and then somebody back here was doing some math, I guess. But yeah, 15-cent movie ticket with that little coupon. This is one of the highlights, to me anyway, of the service station in all its glory, along with the house next to it. Beautiful, crisp winter day in Cache Valley, Utah. They had painted the addition building to look more in line, so it was a very uniform appearance. And then unfortunately, after his retirement in 1967, things started to go downhill for the next 30 or so years. I took this picture around 1997 when I would have just been freshly licensed driver. I was 16 or 17 at the time. This is the station here, looking at it from the east, and looking pretty ragged. They had added this workshop next to it after the property was sold to a new owner, and that was really probably the last time I saw it. I forgot to share these. That's my dad's 68 Chevy Nova. You can see this is probably taken in 1979 or 80. You can see the service station. It was long since closed even by that time. And then we go to a few fun pictures of the house that was next to it. So that house still exists today. In fact, you'll see in this video here in just a second, I'm going to show you what that looks like in 2023. But even the house itself was really cool. I loved the white and green motif, these cool cars. This one is my grandmother here with my Uncle Jeff. She's wearing the red pants. And then this awesome little radio flyer wagon scene. You can see the Chevron sign in the background there. And another shot from a different angle of the house. So such cool family history there. Obviously, automotive culture goes very deep with me. And the next thing I'm going to show you is some newspaper articles that I dug up from some online archives, specifically referencing the station. So here again is the opening day one from June 20th, 1923. This one was in the same newspaper. Take the kiddies out for a ride and get good service at the college service station. This was an article from 1925, 2 years later, when there were people caught stealing gas from the station. They made an implement that enabled them to draw gasoline from the tank, and they were caught in the act. So I just picture my great-grandpa showing up there and asking what the heck they thought they were doing, stealing gas. This is an advertisement from 1926 with the station when gas was at 26 cents per gallon. You could buy a Goodyear tire for $8.50. And he must have had a history of kind of crime in that area just because he was right on the main road, because again in 1927 the station was burglarized during the night. Thief or thieves breaking a window, then reaching through and unlocking the door. A check is being made to ascertain what was stolen. That was August 1927. He must have dealt in other things besides automotive, because he was, according to this advertisement, he was selling radios. This is 1930 when my grandma was born, January 16th of 1930. Put this in here just because it reflects sort of the market pricing of the era. Corn for 29 cents. This was about an automobile accident that occurred when a truck and a sedan collided just outside the service station. This was kind of fun, how they put an article together on just current events in automotive in the Valley. One of them had to do with, somebody buying a new Plymouth sedan. Then they talk about accidents occurring in the canyon because of slick roads and poorly adjusted brakes. That's in 1930. Another article about an accident. An article about my grandmother's 4th birthday. Hosted a party on Wednesday evening in honor of their daughter Marilyn, who was celebrating her birthday. A cake holding 4 candles centered the table. Another accident story. I'm almost through the end of these, I promise. Another issue with prowlers looting the station. This one was in 1934. Considerable amount of candy and tobacco was stolen. More advertisements. You could buy a suit for $5 here. That was 1936. An ad for tires that he sold here. He actually did receive an award. I think that's right here. Yeah, so the owner, president of Goodyear Tire Company, gave my great-grandfather a plaque in recognition of selling Goodyear products for 15 years. Unrelated to the station, but this is some car classifieds that I found. 1941, you could buy these types of cars. Now this was a cool one. My great-grandpa took a 2-week trip to the eastern states. I can't get this to focus. They drove a new car home from Detroit, it says. So I would love to find out what that new car was in 1941. And last but not least, this was a Shell advertisement. I thought it was kind of funny. Even if your car's gone less than 10,000 miles, it may now have higher compression than when it left the factory and may knock because of this. So car maintenance was a whole different ball game back then, and it would have been fun to have a conversation with my great-grandpa about what those old Model Ts and Model As required. Today I'm going to do something a little bit unique on the channel and talk about some family history. So I'm standing in front of the purple PT Cruiser that we got running at the end of last year, but across the street is my area of focus. So let me tell you a little bit about this here in a second. This little house back here was built about 100 years ago, and it's been in my family ever since. Now this space right here between the house and this sort of industrial workshop used to be home to one of the first service stations in this entire valley. Now this is Logan, Utah, in so close to Idaho, in fact, that the Idaho state line is only 30 or 40 miles north this direction. But we are standing on my grandma's lawn. She's there in the window watching me do my thing, dressed in yellow. But Anyway, my great-grandfather, her dad, Merrill Hansen, built a service station that was here. It operated from the early 1920s until 1967 when he retired. Later became home to a snowmobile shop and a few other things, and eventually was demolished. So, point of all this is, it was June 20th of 1923 when his service station formally opened for the public, and I'm going to share with you some special newspaper ads and things of that nature from when he first went into business. He was a Chevron dealer, Parco, Texaco. He went through virtually every oil company that you can think of during the lifespan of that service station, and my family has a lot of memories of what it was like to work there and to hang out there back in the early days. So kind of a cool walk down memory lane. Grandma and I are going to head to lunch here with the family, but just wanted to share that. This is really fun to talk about heritage, and I'm going to link a story that I wrote for ClassicCars.com during the holidays, and it talks a little bit about more on the in-depth history of that cool service station. So thanks for watching.